Welcome, I'm Alex, and I'm going to help you conquer Loop Hero, likely the most perilous single road you have ever adventured across. I wrote out a decent amount of tips as I played through Loop Hero, so some of these will be more beginner focused and some will be more advanced, but stick with it till the very end because I can almost entirely guarantee that at least one human being will learn at least one new thing. First, battlefields spawn a lootable chest every time you complete one loop, but if you overlap a battlefield's area with another, it will create a blood path, which will spawn blood clot enemies. They are adorable little reanimated goop piles, but are pretty hard to kill. Since the battlefield chest loot quality scales higher according to the number of loops you have completed, you want to position your battlefields towards the start of your loop instead of towards the end. You don't want to be snagging all that shiny new gear right before it becomes more outdated on the next loop, so put it all to use early. Also, consider placing battlefields opposite of your heavily populated monster pathways, because defeated enemies in a battlefield's area of influence can become spooky ghosts upon death. If you try to retreat from a map to save your accumulated resources, doing so on any regular tile will only allow you to take home 60% of what you've gathered. Hero taxes suck. However, if you can make it back around to the camp that you started from and then retreat, you'll go home with 100% of your acquired resources. Also, you can hold down the retreat button to have it automatically bring up the retreat option for the next time you go back to the camp. If you're feeling a bit chicken and want to bravely run away last second, this even allows you to retreat with all of your gathered resources right before initiating an intimidating boss fight. If you completely encircle a treasury, it will reward a big payout of materials and some gear, which then turns it into an empty treasury, which will start spawning gargoyles on your map. They make for great decoration, but can be annoying when they start that throat swiping. The gear you gain from a completed treasury scales with how many loops you have completed, so you might want to leave these treasuries hanging with just one open spot left to complete later on during your run for even greater quality rewards. These next few you likely already know, but just in case, meadows usually heal for a small amount of HP at the start of a new day, but if you place them right next to anything other than another meadow, it will turn into a blooming meadow instead. These heal for a little more daily HP and provide a bonus resource. If you place a 3x3 area of rocks and or mountains, it will convert to a mountain peak, which still provides a HP boost along with a bonus haul of materials, but also starts spawning harpies on your loop. During battle, you can pause the action by hovering over yourself or an enemy, holding down left click, or by going over to your inventory items. You can also switch out your gear mid-combat to make improvements or adjustments according to what you're fighting. You don't get your gear back after replacing it though, so keep that in mind. If you place a blood grove next to another blood grove, instead of next to a normal grove or forest tile, it will turn it into a hungry grove. This will allow it to instantly finish off enemies at a higher threshold in that area, but has the downside of periodically damaging your hero as well. If you've ever seen any of the Evil Dead movies, you have a general idea of what these dangerous finds are doing. Consider placing your vampire summoning mansions right next to swamp tiles. While battling in a swamp, just like in real life, the healing effects of vampirism will be reversed, inflicting damage on the attacker instead, but keep in mind this applies to you as well. For the first boss, the Lich, hold on to every Oblivion card you gain to use for destroying the palaces the Lich summons after he spawns. The Lich will have more HP and damage for each of these palaces you leave standing, so just kindly delete them. Be careful when placing ruin tiles next to each other or any other combat heavy areas, because the scorn worms these things produce can use ranged attacks during adjacent fights, making them a double threat. When playing as the rogue, if you have enabled the auto retreat button, it will prematurely open the retreat menu when you get back to camp before the rogue turns in all of their acquired trophies, which is how the class gathers new gear. If you back out of the auto retreat screen while keeping in planning phase, you will turn in those trophies, gain and scrap all that extra gear, and then allow you to still retreat with those extra resources you're rightfully owed. Placing storm temples will turn a forest or thicket tile into a burned forest if they're placed in the pathway of the storm temple's lightning strikes. These burned forest tiles provide a magic damage boost instead of an attack speed boost. Magic damage applies more DPS over your base damage stat, by the way. Since burned forest tiles don't scale according to if you arson a forest or thicket tile, it's best to keep thickets alive for their higher attack speed boost and turn the lower attack speed forest tiles into those damage boosting burned ones. If you place a river tile next to a desert or sand dunes, it will turn into an oasis, which reduces the attack speed of your hero, but reduces the attack speed of all other creatures by even more. Hinder your victims with pure relaxation. If you place a vampire mansion next to a village, it will turn into a ransacked village, which spawns a swarm of ghouls each loop. If you can survive through 3 loops with this on your map, the ransacked village will evolve into a Count's Land, which heals you for a much greater amount of HP than the normal village. You can also use an Oblivion card to remove the vampire spawning mansion right after you turn a village into a ransacked village, which will still evolve it into a Count's Land, minus all those vampires you would normally have to slay. If you level up the field kitchen back at your home base, it will turn into a canteen, raising your campfire's healing abilities, but more importantly, upgrading it again after that turns it into a diner. The diner further improves the healing properties of your campfire, but also gives you the ability to heal up at your campsite right before taking on the area boss. Every 10 rocks or mountains you place will summon a goblin camp somewhere on your loop. If it spawns next to a swamp, or you place one next to the camp, it will turn into a goblin lookout, which spawns goblin archers. Placing outposts allows for additional soldiers to help out in nearby battles, but at the cost of taking any rare loot that is dropped during the fights they're in. These soldiers will turn against you if you're playing as the Necromancer class. However, the Rogue class really benefits from outposts since the Rogue acquires trophies instead of gear during battles. Now you can use the local militia completely for free because you're a skeevy rogue. If you run a river next to your loop's main pathway, it will turn that section of the river into a reed, which spawns fishmen on nearby tiles. Lastly, when playing as the Necromancer, even though your personal attack damage will not matter too much because your minions scale off of different stats, still, don't neglect your attack speed stat. The Necromancer spawns a new minion every time the attack meter fills, and if your attack speed stat is boosted high enough, you'll be able to quickly spawn new allies faster than the enemies can DPS them all down. Attack speed is actually one of the Necromancer's best defensive stats, since a meat shield is the absolute best diversion from yourself. And that's it, mostly all of what I figured out so far when playing through Loop Hero. I know there's a lot more in there, so use the comment section to highlight the things you have figured out as well. If you have a good find, I'll be hearting those comments to help them rise to the top for everybody else. If you enjoyed the style of this video, consider sticking around on the channel because this is all just really me winging it, doing what I love, and having a good time covering the games I want to play. As always, this has been Alex from Boomstick Gaming, and a big congrats to you for completing this entire loop. Welcome, I'm Alex, and I'm going to help you conquer Loop Hero, likely the most perilous single road you have ever adventured across.